Imagine stepping into a single, unassuming room in Philadelphia, wood-paneled walls, simple chairs, the faint echo of heated arguments still hanging in the air. Inside these four walls, 55 men locked the doors, swore secrecy, and forged the blueprint for the most powerful nation on earth. The Declaration of Independence was declared here. The U.S. Constitution was hammered out here. This wasn't just a building. It was the crucible where raw ideas of liberty, power, and governance collided to birth America. But what if the real story isn't just about heroic founders? It's about a colony built on Quaker ideals of peace and tolerance that became the beating heart of revolution, industry, and division. Pennsylvania wasn't just where America was born. It was the room where the nation's contradictions were laid bare. Join us as we step inside the room where America was born and discover why its echoes still shape our battles today. In the late 17th century, while other colonies chased gold or religious conformity through force, one man dreamed of something different. William Penn, a wealthy Englishman turned Quaker, shocked his aristocratic world by embracing a faith that rejected hierarchies, oaths, and war. Persecuted in England, he turned to King Charles II, who owed his late father a massive debt, £16,000, a fortune in today's money. In 1681, the king granted Penn a vast tract of land as repayment, naming it Pennsylvania or Penn's Woods. Penn saw it as a holy experiment, a place of religious tolerance, fair dealings, and peaceful coexistence. He arrived in 1682, founding Philadelphia on the Delaware River with a grid plan that was revolutionary. Wide streets, green spaces, a city built for people, not just profit. Unlike the rigid Puritan settlements to the north or the plantation economies to the south, Pennsylvania welcomed everyone, Quakers, Mennonites, Germans, Scots-Irish, even Jews and Catholics, in an era when such diversity was dangerous. Penn negotiated treaties with the Lenape people, purchasing land fairly rather than seizing it, earning a reputation for peace that lasted decades. But let's be clear, this utopia had shadows. Quakers debated slavery early. Germantown Friends issued the first formal protest against it in 1688, but many wealthy Quakers, including Penn himself, owned enslaved people or profited from the trade. The colony thrived on agriculture, trade in wheat and timber, and shipbuilding, drawing immigrants fleeing Europe's wars and famines. By the mid-1700s, Philadelphia was the largest, wealthiest city in the colonies, a bustling port where ideas flowed as freely as goods. Benjamin Franklin arrived, printing newspapers, founding libraries, fire companies, and hospitals, turning the city into America's intellectual capital. Yet beneath the tolerance simmered tensions, frontier conflicts with native tribes, religious rivalries, and growing unease with distant British rule. Pennsylvania was a promise of equality in a world built on inequality, setting the stage for the explosion to come. By the 1760s, the French and Indian War had left Britain victorious but bankrupt, and the Crown looked to the colonies to pay the bill. Taxes like the Stamp Act and Townshend Acts hit hard, but in Pennsylvania, the response was measured. Quaker pacifism clashed with frontier anger. Philadelphia became the gathering place. In 1774, the First Continental Congress met in Carpenter's Hall, delegates from 12 colonies plotting resistance. Then came the second, in 1775, at the Pennsylvania State House, where John Adams pushed for independence while moderates hesitated. The debates were fierce, personal, electric. Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration. On July 4, 1776, delegates signed it in the Assembly Room, risking treason for a bold assertion: all men are created equal. But Pennsylvania's own revolution was radical. The 1776 state constitution created one of the most democratic governments in the world, with a unicameral legislature and broad suffrage. Yet the city fell to the British in 1777. The State House became a prison and hospital. Washington wintered at Valley Forge nearby, his army nearly breaking, but emerging stronger. The turning point wasn't one moment. It was this room, where men like Franklin, who had once admired the British Empire, now drafted a document that shattered it. Pennsylvania's diversity fueled the fire. German farmers supplied the army, Scots-Irish frontiersmen fought fiercely, and Quaker pacifists grappled with supporting war. As the revolution raged, The State House stood as the nerve center, proving that ideas born in tolerance could ignite rebellion. Victory in 1783 brought independence, but chaos followed. The Articles of Confederation were weak. Shays' rebellion echoed fears of anarchy. In 1787, delegates returned to the same room for the Constitutional Convention, secret sessions, sweltering heat, windows nailed shut. James Madison, Gouverneur Morris, and others debated representation, slavery, executive power. Pennsylvania's delegates pushed for a strong union. The Great Compromise balanced large and small states. On September 17, they signed the Constitution, a living document born of compromise and conflict. But ratification was brutal. Pennsylvania's convention ratified second, but anti-federalists decried the lack of a Bill of Rights. The new government moved to Philadelphia in 1790, making it the temporary capital. Here, the first Bank of the United States was chartered. Hamilton's financial system took root, and partisan battles between Federalists and Jeffersonians began. Dark shadows lingered. Pennsylvania passed gradual abolition in 1780, the first state, but slavery persisted. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 sparked kidnappings. Free black communities fought back. Frontier violence continued. Whiskey rebels rose against federal taxes in 1794, crushed by Washington himself. The power shift was profound. From colonial outpost to national capital, Pennsylvania shaped the fragile new republic, its internal divisions mirroring the nation's. The 19th century transformed Pennsylvania into an industrial giant. Coal from the anthracite fields powered the nation. Edwin Drake drilled the first commercial oil well in 1859 at Titusville. Iron and steel boomed. Andrew Carnegie built an empire in Pittsburgh. Bethlehem steel dominated shipbuilding. Railroads spiderwebbed the state. Canals linked rivers, turning Philadelphia and Pittsburgh into manufacturing hubs. Immigrants poured in: Irish, Germans, Italians, Eastern Europeans, fueling factories but sparking nativist backlash. Labor strife erupted. The Homestead Strike of 1892 saw Pinkerton's battle steelworkers. The Molly Maguires in coal country faced execution amid accusations of terrorism. Yet Pennsylvania led reforms. Abolitionists like Lucretia Mott pushed women's rights. The Underground Railroad thrived in Quaker networks. The Civil War tested everything. Gettysburg in 1863, the bloodiest battle, turned the tide. Lincoln's address redefined the nation. Pennsylvania sent troops, produced weapons, and stood firm for the Union. Post-war, steel and coal made tycoons rich, cities grew, but exploitation bred unions and strikes. Through innovation, from railroads to electricity, Pennsylvania became the forge of American industry, its wealth and power undeniable, its scars deep. Today, Pennsylvania bridges old and new. Philadelphia pulses with biotech, education, University of Pennsylvania and Drexel drive innovation, while Pittsburgh, once steel's capital, reinvented as a tech and healthcare hub with Carnegie Mellon and robotics. The state leads in energy, natural gas from the Marcellus Shale, yet grapples with environmental costs and transition to green jobs. Politically, it's the ultimate swing state, deciding close elections with urban progressivism clashing against rural conservatism. From the opioid crisis ravaging communities to debates over fracking and voting rights, Pennsylvania reflects America's divides. Yet it remains influential. mRNA vaccine research here helped combat COVID. Its ports and logistics connect the nation. Why does it matter? In an era of polarization, Pennsylvania shows how a place born of tolerance can endure conflict, how industrial might can evolve into innovation, how one room's decisions still echo in every American debate. The Keystone State isn't just history, it's the ongoing experiment in democracy. As shadows lengthen across Independence Hall's assembly room, where ink dried on documents that changed the world, pause and listen. Those walls heard cries for liberty, compromises on slavery, visions of union. Pennsylvania's story, from Penn's dream to industrial roar to modern crossroads, reminds us that nations aren't born perfect. They're forged in tension, rebuilt through struggle. In this room, America was born not once, but continually, every time we debate freedom, equality, power. The question isn't what happened here, it's what we do next. The cradle still rocks. Will we heed its lessons, or let the experiment falter.